so we're still going to be working with factoring. We have factoring day 2. And so we're going to be factoring what we call trinomials. And it's a trinomial because we have 3 terms, x squared plus bx plus c. Okay, so that's what we're going to be factoring first. Okay, so looking here, we have x squared plus 13x plus 12. So we need to see what our factors are for those. So the way that we factor these ones are a little bit different from the way we did the previous problem. So what we got to do first is we have to see, I'm going to make 2 sets of parentheses. Okay, and then we see what 2 numbers multiply or what 2 letters multiply to give us x squared. So we know that x times x gives me x squared. Okay, then we need to see what 2 numbers multiply to give us 12, but will add up to 13. Okay, so we have several factors for 12, so you can go ahead and write them down. So to give us 12, we have 1 times 12. We have 2 times 6. We have 2 times 6, and then 3 times 4. And those are your factors for 12, okay? So we see which one of these will add up to 13. So the one that would add up to 13 would be this one, 1 and 12. They're both positive, so it's going to be plus 1 plus 12. Okay, you can go ahead and go back and check your work if you want to. I'm going to do it for the first problem just to show you guys how. We put it in a box. If you guys recall, we have x plus 1 and x plus 12, and we multiply. X times x gives you x squared, x times 12 gives you 12x, 1 times x gives you 1x, and then 1 times 12 gives you 12. So it's like we're working backwards. So we have x squared plus 1x plus 12x plus 12. And when we add these together, it gives us x squared plus 13x plus 12. And that's it. Okay, so that's our solution. Now, I'm not going to check every single one, but that's just to give you an example of how you would check it. So the next one, we have x squared plus 15x plus 50. So we do the same thing. We set our 2 sets of parentheses, and we have x squared. So x times x gives us x squared. And then we have 50. So we're looking for what 2 numbers multiply to give us 50, and then we're going to see which ones would add up to 15. So 1 and 50, of course, give you 50, but when you add them together, that does not give you 15. Okay, 2 times 25 gives you 50, but they do not add up to 15. Let's see, 5 times 10 gives you 50, and 5 plus 10 gives you 15. So then that means that your 2 factors are going to be x plus 5 and x plus 10. Okay. All right, the next one we have x squared minus 13x plus 36. Okay, so we do the same thing. Now this one, it has a minus 13x, so we're going to have to keep that into consideration. But we do start it off the same way. We set up our 2 sets of parentheses. Okay, x times x is x squared, and then we're going to look. What 2 numbers multiply to give us 36, but are going to add up to negative 13? Okay, so 36, if we look at the factors, we have 1 times 36. Now, because it is a positive 36, that means they both have to be negative because 2 negatives multiply and give us a positive 36. And then if we were to add negative 1 plus negative 36, it'll give us negative 37, okay, when we add them together. So we do need that number when we add them together to be negative. Okay, but this doesn't give us negative 13. So we move on to the next one, negative 2 times negative 18. That gives us a positive 36. But when we add negative 2 plus negative 18, that gives us negative 20. So that is not our factor. We have negative 3 times negative 12.
Instructional aids, good morning. We're about to start our meeting in the Commons. Please report to the Commons. Instructional aids. Thank you.
Okay. Sorry about that. So negative 3 plus negative 12 would give us negative 15. So that's not what we're looking for. We're looking for negative 13. So we go on. 4 times 9 gives us 36 as well. So negative 4 times negative 9 gives us a positive 36. And when you add these two together, that gives us a a negative 13. So that would be our factors, x minus 4 because it's negative and x minus 9 because it's also negative. And that's it. All right, the next one, we have x squared plus 3x minus 18. So here we're going to do our double sets of parentheses. We have x and x gives us x squared. This time we have a negative 18, so that means one of them has to be positive and the other one's going to have to be negative in order for us to get a negative 18. So we're looking for the factors of 18. Okay, so when this happens, we have 1 and 18 gives us 18. And so what we're going to do is instead of adding them together, we're going to subtract them. Okay, because one of them has to be negative. So if we do 1 minus 18, that gives us 17, or negative 17, and we're looking for a positive 3. So this is not our factors. Okay, so we move on to the next one. 2 times 9 gives us 18. We know one of them is going to have to be negative. So if I subtract them, 2 minus 9 would give us a negative 7. So this is not it. Then we have 3 times 6. 3 times 6 would give us 18. We know one of them needs to be negative because it's not just 18, it's a negative 18. So if we do 3 minus 6, that would give us a negative 3, but we need a positive 3. So instead of being 3 minus 6, it should be 6 minus 3, right? Would give us a positive. So then that means that my factors of 6 has to be positive and the 3 has to be negative. And that's it. Okay, let's move on to the next one. Okay, we have x squared. So x times x gives us x squared. And then for 14, we have 14, and it's a negative 14. So that means one's going to have to be positive and the other one's going to have to be negative. So we try 14. 1 minus 14 is 13. So that's not going to work. We need it to be a negative 5. So we have 2 times 7. Well, 2 times 7 gives me 14. One of them has to be negative because it's a negative 14. So 2 minus 7 would give me the negative 5. So it's going to be a positive 2 and a minus 7 because the 5 needs to be negative. That's it. Okay, the next one, we have x squared plus 4x minus 45. We have the same thing. X times x gives us x squared. And then to get 45, we have 9 times 5. Gives us 45. So let's go ahead and try 9 times 5. Now remember, it's a negative 45, so either the 9 is going to be negative or the 5 is going to be negative. So if we do 9 minus 5, that gives me a positive 4, and this has to be a positive 4. So we're good. Okay, it's going to be a positive 9 and a negative 5. All right, the next one, factoring. So this time, these ones are different because it has a number here in the front, which changes things just a little bit. Okay, so if it has a number in the front, this is an example with the 2, this is an example with the 4, this is an example with the 5 in the front. You are going to do the same thing for all of these problems. You're going to multiply the 2 times the 21. So 2 times 21 gives me 42. And then we're going to go ahead and see what two numbers multiply to give us 42, but we'll add up to, and it's going to be a negative 13. Okay, so let's see. 9, not 9. So 1 times 42, 2 times 21. I'm not going to write down all the factors. 7 times 6, I believe. 7 times 6 will give me 42. Now it is a positive 42, but this is a negative 13. So what happens here is a negative 7 times a negative 6 will still give me a positive 42, but we'll add up to negative 13. Okay, so this one you do a little bit different than we did the last problem. Okay, instead of writing negative 13, I'm going to use these right here. I'm going to use negative 7x and negative 6x. Okay, so it's going to be minus 7x minus 6x. And then here I have plus 21. Okay, so all I did was swap out the negative 13 with the negative 7x minus 6. Okay. Then what we're going to do is what we did yesterday. You factor by grouping. So we group the first two. So between the 2x, it's 2x squared, sorry, and the negative 7x, they both have an x in common. So we take out an x and we're left with 2x minus 7. Okay. Then we have minus 6x plus 21. So we're going to group the next two. Okay, remember whenever we have this minus here, it does change things a little bit. And then we find the greatest common factor between 6 and 21, which is 3. Okay, so negative 3 times 2 gives me this negative 6x. Okay, so negative 3 times 2x gives me the negative 6x. And then we have 21. So negative 3 times a negative 7 would give me that positive 21. Okay. Then we notice that these two have a 2x minus 7, so we write that on the outside, 2x minus 7, and then we write whatever is left over, x minus 3. X minus 3, and that would be our two factors. Okay, so this method is only used when you have that coefficient in the front. Okay, so here we have a 4, x squared plus 8x plus 3. We started off the same way that we did the last problem. We multiply 4 times 3, which is 12. We go ahead and write down the factors of 12. We have 1 and 12, but that doesn't add up to 8. We have 2 and 6, that does add up to 8. Okay, so instead of having this 8x, we're going to rewrite it as 2x plus 6x. Okay, so it'll be 4x squared plus 2x plus 6x, and then at the very end we have plus 3. Okay, so all we did was replace the 2x and the 6x for the 8x, okay, because 2 plus 6 we know is 8. Okay, then following that, we have these first two we group together. So between 4x squared and 2x squared, they both have a 2 in common. I can factor out a 2 and an x. And so we know 2 times 2 gives us 4, and then x times x gives us x squared. Okay, so I already did the first term, plus. I took out the 2 and the x, so it's going to be plus 1, because 2 times 1 gives me that 2x. All right, then we have the 6x plus 3 that we're going to group. So between 6 and 3, we can factor out a 3, so it's going to be plus 3. And then we know 3 times 2 gives us 6x, plus, and then 3 times 1 gives me that 3. Okay, so then looking at both of these, they both have a 2x plus 1 in common, so I write it out here, 2x plus 1. And then we write whatever is left over, so I'm left with 2x plus 3. Okay, and then the last example. Okay, so whenever you have that number out there in the front, you go ahead and multiply 5 and negative 7, that gives me negative 35. So we look, okay, what numbers multiply to give me negative 35, but it's going to have to add up to a positive 34. Okay, so 1 times 35 gives me 35. Now it does need to be a positive 34, so when we subtract these, if I do 35 minus 1, that would give me 34. So that means that the 35 is positive and the x is negative. Okay, so I substitute this instead of this. I'm going to write it here to the side. 5x squared plus 35x minus 1x minus 7. And then we factor it by grouping. So we group these two together. Between the 5 and the 35, they both have a 5 in common that we can take out, and then we can also take out an x. So we are left with x plus 7. Okay, and then on the next section, we have minus. Okay, and then between the x and the 7, we don't have anything that we can factor out, so we're just going to write it as x. And then remember, there's an invisible 1 right here. Okay, so negative 1 times a positive 7 would give me that negative 7 that I need here. So remember, when there's a negative there, you do need to keep the sign into consideration. Okay, so here they both have an x plus 7, so I write it out here. X plus 7. And then we write whatever's left over. So we're left over with a 5x, and then minus, remember there's an invisible 1 right there. So it'll be 5x minus 1. And that's it. So if you guys have any questions, you can leave it down in the comments or go ahead and email me. Thank you guys. Bye.